Star Communications. This is James.
Hi, I was calling to get the drug tip line.
Sure. Hang on just a second. Let me get that number.
Sure.
You got a pen?
Yeah.
All right. It is.
You have a nice voice.
Thank you very much.
Wow. Okay.
I appreciate it. It's 303 739 1964.
Thank you. You have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Well, goddamn hello and welcome back to the Death Metal Disco Podcast. It has been almost a month, I think, since I uploaded one of my episodes. And I'm sorry about that. I have been very busy and negligent in my podcasting responsibilities, and for that I apologize. The last episode I uploaded was actually when I was a guest on the Power in You podcast hosted by my friend Richie. And that was a 2.5 hour thing. And it was a good time to be on it. And I'm glad that they had me on it. And from what you folks have told me, it was a good episode. And if you haven't already checked out their podcast, you should check out their podcast, The Power in You. It's on Anchor. It's on Spotify. The same shit that I'm on. Just go find it. The Power in You podcast. Worth a listen. Give it a shot. If you're looking for anything for, self-improvement or mental health or, our episode, not necessarily so much covering that. We do kind of delve a little bit into that just for my own personal history and stuff here and there. But it's a good podcast, and I highly recommend it. Just, if that's what you're looking for, it's about helping people grow, and that's always a good thing. So yeah, check that out. That's the last thing I uploaded, was just they shared it with me to upload in addition to having it on their own podcast. So I uploaded the whole episode. And before that, episode 11. Don't even remember what the hell I talked about. I think it was the names one. So I didn't look. Fun fact, I was in Los Angeles the last 2 weeks, and I was out there for work, my day job, and then I got crazy sick last weekend. My sinuses have been bothering me the last month or so anyway, which is typical for this time of year, but went full-blown sinus infection. Felt like I swallowed a bunch of razor blades last weekend, just to be safe, because I was hoping I'd still be able to go on site and conduct my training that I had been doing. I went and got a rapid COVID test at an urgent care facility. I was actually in San Pedro. I don't know why they call it San Pedro, or not San Pedro. Like, I would call it San Pedro, but everybody there calls it San Pedro. Whatever, I digress. Went to this urgent care facility that isn't even open as an urgent care. All they do right now is COVID testing stuff. They're still building the inside of their urgent care facility. And they were really cool. Got me the results in about 15 minutes, half hour-ish. And then I told them, I am kind of sickly right now. And they said, well, if your symptoms worsen, call us back and we'll see about prescribing you something. So I said, all right. So the very next day, I could barely swallow anything. My voice was awful. Just could barely talk. It was no bueno at all. So I called them and basically begged them to hook me up with some prescriptions for Augmentin, which is amoxicillin and some other stuff, super strong antibiotic. And they did, and then some cough syrup stuff, and that was good. They were able to call it in, and I was able to go pick it up, courtesy of a coworker who was also out there for training. She drove me around and basically took care of me, and then I ended up working for a couple of days from the hotel room, which sucks. Like, it's one thing to work remote, but when you're on site to do something and you have to work from the hotel room because you're fucking sick, and another coworker had to come down to help bail you out so that the project deadlines and shit don't get affected because you can't teach. I mean, I was super glad that Alexis and Shannon could help me out. Like, I couldn't be more thankful to work with people like them. But yeah, it was still just a bummer. And the schedule was all fucked up anyway, but whatever. It went surprisingly well, all things considered. There was a lot of challenges against us just conducting the training, but anyway, that's my day job stuff. I don't even want to talk about it. Anyway, Los Angeles, 2 weeks. Staying in the hotel room a lot gets really, really, really old really quickly. Anyway, I'm feeling a lot better. Not 100% yet, and I was supposed to record this last night on Saturday. It's Sunday right now. And meant to record it last night, but just wasn't feeling up to it. Started the day off kind of motivated, sleepy but motivated, and had planned on recording it, but just didn't do it. And then today, woke up and my throat has still been kind of iffy here and there, but then my stupid ass went to band practice and said, hey, I don't know how well I'll be able to do the whole rah thing. And we practiced for almost 2 hours, and I did what I could, and now I sound like this, which I don't know if you can tell the difference. I can feel it in my throat, in my chest when I speak. A little bit different than normal, and a little more gravelly, I think. But yeah, still stuffy, whatever. Taking allergy meds, and still got my antibiotics I'm working through, and some other shit, nasal spray galore, some generic for Flonase, not sponsored. That stuff seems to do a pretty good job, not gonna lie. The Flonase generic, I've never had the brand name, but that was the first time I've ever had that stuff. I've had Afrin before, and that shit apparently is addictive for your nose. It has a disclaimer saying, hey, don't use this more than 3 days. And years ago, I ended up using it for like 3 months, and the doctor's like, yeah, your body basically becomes reliant upon it. So even though you don't necessarily need it, your body freaks out and makes it think that it needs it. So you get all stuffy as if you were when you first actually did need it. And that was kind of weird. So then, they gave me saline solution and whatever, and whole big thing. But anyway, Afrin, kids, be careful. Just say no to drugs or whatever. So because of the situation with being able to speak right now, I don't know what it sounds like to you, but physically feeling it, I could feel every single little vibration of my vocal folds at the moment, and it's kind of trippy. I'm not going to lie. And I'm going to keep this episode pretty short. Hopefully. I say that every episode, but I don't know that I've actually succeeded in doing so. We'll see. I do want to say a huge shout out to Robert Smith. Rob Smith, the homie from southern New Mexico, southeastern New Mexico, to be more precise. He is the winner of the Death Metal Disco giveaway that I did a few weeks ago. He won a $25 gift card. He chose a gift card to Angelo's CDs, Tapes, and More music store, local music store chain here in Colorado. He shops with them. I figured it would be online, but he is not a huge fan of using the internet, so he just phone orders it in, like calls him over the phone and orders it, I guess. So I couldn't send him a gift card for that. I didn't have a chance to stop at the store and see if they would even take a gift card called in over the phone with them, and I couldn't seem to buy one online for him. So I ended up sending him a $25 gift card, Visa gift card that he could use for whatever, but he's also a nurse, so, I sent him a thank you card because it just happened to be the first fucking card I saw on the shelf in the thank you. I was looking for a thank you card, thanks for playing or congratulations or whatever, and it was all in that same section. And it happened to be a thank you card specifically to nurses. And I thought, well, shit, that's fucking appropriate. So needless to say, that's the card we went with. And if you are in the medical field of any kind, especially emergency medical response, or if you're a first responder, as in a dispatcher, the dispatchers get my love anyway, as a former dispatcher. Yeah, if you're a dispatcher, first responder, or a firefighter, paramedic, EMT, police officer, whatever, thank you for your service. Just in general, like COVID notwithstanding, shit is crazy. And especially for the nurses and the medical professionals right now, the COVID thing is just dumb. My cousin's a nurse, and she deals with COVID patients daily. And she's basically one of my heroes. She was her and my Aunt Kay, they took care of me last year when my back was all fucked up after I got out of the hospital. My aunt said, hey, come stay with me for a week. She cooked. She's amazing. She, I don't know what her actual title was back in the day when she worked in the hospital, but she was basically a radiology technician / nurse, something or other. I think her particular title was more hardcore than the regular RN now, I guess. I got the details from her last year, but I can't remember exactly what it was. But between her and my cousin Rebecca, they took really good care of me. And my cousin, she was working, and then COVID hit, and they turned her floor into a COVID floor as things started progressing. And now that's exclusively what she does, from what I gather. And I know a few people in the medical field, and I know a lot of people that are first responders, as in police officers. I don't think I know any firefighters actively, at least not in person. And I know a couple EMTs and paramedics, and I know a lot of dispatchers. And, if you don't hear it from anybody else, thank you. Thank you for what you do. And that's my PSA on that. So, Rob, thanks for listening. I appreciate the support and the comments. And you're my boy, Blue. So, yeah. Also, Rob is probably the coolest thing in New Mexico. Just saying. He's not a thing. He's a person. I get that. But he's also cool. So, there's that. So, I've had people tell me that, they like what I've done with the podcast so far. And they think it would be a cool idea if I shared stories of my past life, either from the grocery store back in the day when I worked for the local Kroger chain, King Soopers, which I did for 10 years, or from my past life as a dispatcher, which I did up until about 4.5 years ago before I took my current day job. And I liked that idea, and that was always my plan anyway, was to kind of incorporate stories from just my life in general into the podcast from time to time. And my Aunt Kathy, she was one of the ones that made the suggestion, and she's an avid supporter and listener, and I thank you, Kathy. And she's also one of the supporters on the Anchor.fm platform, as in a paid supporter, which, if you didn't know, you can physically pay to support this podcast, which is cool. It's weird for me to ask people to do that, but if you feel so inclined, just check it out, Anchor.fm/Death Metal Disco, I think, something along there. But if you find it on Anchor.fm, it's listener support, I think is what it's called, if you're into it. But if not, no worries, no pressure. I'm not here to solicit you for funds or anything like that. I have a job. I can make my own money. But if you feel like supporting me, hell yeah, I appreciate you. I'll give you a shout out. Thank you. Maybe send you a picture of my boobs. Maybe not. Maybe I will. I don't know. That's TBD. My aunt is not getting a picture of my boobs, just for the record. So back to the topic I was going on about before I fucking derailed entirely. Stories about my past life. I definitely think that's a good idea. And I've told, an Uber story from Valentine's Day back in 2014 or 2015, whatever year it was. And that's one of my favorite Uber stories. I think I'm probably going to tell a dispatch story. But first, so you've been listening to me ramble on for quite some time about this, that, and the other. So allow me to ramble on briefly about how I operate this podcast. There's lots of options for how you want to post and host your podcast and put it out into the world. I did a lot of research on mine, and for me, I decided to go with Anchor.fm. If you haven't heard of Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. First of all, it's free. That was a big selling point to me. Free is good. I like free. There's also tools for creation to help you record and edit your podcast from your phone or your computer or your tablet or whatever you're using. I find that to be effective. So we got free, we got recording and editing, both big deals, because they are. Anchor will also distribute your podcast for you. So it can be heard on Spotify, it could be heard on Apple Podcasts, it could be heard on Google Podcasts, and many, many more. That is a huge time saver because I don't have to go to each of those things to upload. So I like that distribution right then and there. And again, it's free. You can make money from your podcast if you're into that kind of thing with no minimum listenership. That could be cool. I think you should try it. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. So if you've been on the fence about making a podcast and the only thing holding you back is how you want to host it or create it or whatever, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. It's worth it. Okay, so people often ask when they find out that I was a dispatcher that, that they'll ask, oh my God, you must have heard some crazy shit, or I can't even imagine doing that job. That sounds stressful. And yeah, the job had its moments. You train a lot to be ready for when the shit hits the fan, and you hope that it never does. It does. And, not necessarily all the time, but, there's always a couple periods through every shift that things just don't go all that well. And you're busier than hell, and maybe a call gets to you in some way or shape or form. You have to do CPR on somebody and they don't make it, and maybe that affects you badly or whatever. It was about 2 or 3 years that I worked in dispatch before I actually had to do CPR over the phone. The agency I used to dispatch for at the time, at least back then when I first started, we asked them if they called and somebody wasn't breathing or anything like that. We asked them if we could guide them through CPR, and they would say yes or no. And, we couldn't force it upon them, and we couldn't just start giving them instructions to do so because that was just not our policy. So every time I had ever had anything like that go down, it always ended up being a no answer. But we train for those times where they say yes, and you hope that they're doing the things you're telling them to do and blah, blah, blah. And I'm always pretty good about compartmentalizing, which seems to be a very difficult word for me to get out from time to time. Compartmentalizing work life and home life. Not necessarily the home life from work life, but, if I have a bad day at home, then I go to work, and sometimes I dwell on that. But usually a bad day at work, if something where somebody dies on the phone with me, or somebody I couldn't save or something from work, I don't take that home with me. And I was always really good about that. And I'm not going to get into any of the sad calls that I took right now, but people think that, it's 100% craziness and sadness all the time. And there's times where it is. The holidays, everybody gets suicidal and blah, 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 really woe is me. And I'm sure this last year has been rough, just with the COVID and lockdown. Everybody feels even more isolated. I'm sure the numbers for suicides are up. And just while we're on that subject, if you are feeling low, down, any of that, and you just need somebody to talk to, reach out to somebody. It can be me. Track me down. Find me on social media, whatever. If nothing else, I'm not a professional, but if nothing else, I will listen. And if it's something where I can provide you assistance, or at least, find you professional help that you can speak to, I will happily help you try to do that. And, or try to help you, whatever I can do, I will. But the job itself, I would say, I tell people is, especially for my former agency, we're pretty big agency, 700-ish police officers, and I don't even know how many firefighters. At the time when I worked there, we had 15 different fire stations. So we did fire, police. We didn't dispatch the ambulances, but we contracted with the ambulance company. And we answered 911s. And we had a population of the city about 320,000, and it was kind of a high traffic city, and it could get stupid busy, or it could be very, very, very slow and peaceful, which was always nice. I was one of those who, if it was quiet, which is not a word we use in dispatch, but if it was quiet and calm, I tried not to take that for granted, because even though when it's busy, time generally goes quicker. When it's busy, and I know I'm busy, and, I'm hopping along and I'm able to keep up and I'm having a good time with it, maybe, that just means that everybody else is probably not having a good time. And by everybody else, I mean the citizens, the people, the callers, because we're only busy when shit is bad out there. And that's always something I tried to remember for myself. So we always get people who are like, oh my God, give us a structure fire. I'm so bored. Give us a structure fire. Which I get the sentimentality of, give me something to do. But at the same time, a house fire means that somebody is potentially losing everything. All their material belongings up in smoke. And sure, while they are fun to work, very interesting things to work, it's it's sad when you think about the actual basis for what goes on, and that's always a bummer. But anyway, people always think, oh yeah, it's crazy. Most of that job is, I would say over 50% of that job is bullshit nonsense. People calling up for stupid little civil disputes between neighbors, or they just have general questions, especially if you're working day shift. The amount of dumb fucking calls you have to deal with is absurd, obscenely high. And I don't miss that at all. I was definitely a night shift person. Two main reasons, mostly because the calls that we would take between day shift and night shift were just night and day difference. Day shift is lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of administrative type calls, lots of transferring, which is also a pro of being on day shift, is you could just transfer them to other departments. But night shift, it's who's fighting who, do they have weapons? Cool, get them off the phone. Day shift, it's, people trying to report things that happened to them 27 years ago when their pastor touched them inappropriately, or their volleyball teacher made them sit on their lap or whatever. It was, day shift calls suck. I fucking hated day shift with a passion, but it is what it is. Then there's the bullshit hang up calls, either the butt dials from cell phones or the disconnected cell phones. So here's a PSA for you, you parents out there. If your cell phone, a disconnected cell phone, it's old, it doesn't have service anymore, if it has battery life, it can still call 911. So just keep that in mind when you let your kids play with that shit. Because even though they just smashing on buttons and giggling to themselves, they are potentially just calling 911 over and over and over again. But occasionally you get the really fun calls, as in like the humorous calls, and the potential for really cool calls, like delivering a baby on the side of the highway, or delivering a baby at all. I worked for dispatch for 10 years. And came close a couple of times to actually delivering a baby over the phone. Closest I came was that baby was crowning right as the ambulance pulled up on the highway. And I was denied that, which was a bummer. They basically pulled a Bugs Bunny and plugged the hole with their finger right as the ambulance pulled up. And that was just about the saddest thing ever. But that was over a Spanish language line interpreter. And that was a difficult call just because of the Spanish language line. So there was a delay in everything. Yeah. But I will say one of the funniest calls that I will always remember taking was a childbirth call. And it was a call from a young girl. She was probably maybe around 8 years old. And she was saying her mom had just gone into labor. And I said, okay. I said 911. It's the address of your emergency. And she gives me the address. And I say, okay. What's going on? She tells me, oh, my mom's pregnant and she's having her baby. I said, all right, well, how far along is your mom? She's 9 months. Okay. How long has she been in labor? She just went into labor. So we're getting all these questions. And as we're getting these questions, one of the questions we have to ask is whether or not the patient, the pregnant mom in this case, is wearing pants. And she says, yeah. And I say, okay, well, can you ask her to take her pants off? I need to ask another question after she takes her pants off. And so the next question that we would ask is, at the time when I worked there, is there any vaginal bulging? And to the layman, vaginal bulging would indicate that the baby is coming. Like, this is about to get real quick. And so I'm asking this little girl, and she's being real good. She's asking all the questions of the mom, and she asks, Mom, they want to know if you have if your vagina's bulging. And then there was a little bit of a shuffle, like she had dropped the phone or whatever. And then a very, 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 very grumpy man gets on the phone. And he's like, hello. And I said, hi, it's 911. I understand that there's a lady in labor there. He said, yeah, why are you asking so many questions? I was like, sir, they are on the way. These questions aren't slowing them down, which is true. So if you've never dealt with 911, just know that the moment we have your address and you told us what the hell's going on, we got help going to you more than likely. So I tell him, trying to calm him down, hey, help is on the way. Just have these questions that we have to ask because, if we need to deliver this baby, then we need to deliver the baby. And so I'm asking him, I was like, hey, I need you to ask her, or I need you to check, does she have any vaginal bulging? Man, why are you trying to ask me all these questions? Like, sir, I need you to ask her, can she feel, does she have any vaginal bulging? He goes, hey, baby, your pussy bulging? And I about died. I had to mute myself, and I was laughing so hard because he was so mad. And then he asked her that way, and I was like, well, this took a weird turn. He gets back on the phone, and he goes, she says, yeah, it is. I said, all right, I need you to tell her to take her pants off, and you need to go get 3 clean, dry towels. And he goes, what the fuck do I need to get 3 dry towels for? And I was like, sir, with the vaginal bulging, that means the baby is coming, so that we need to get ready to deliver this baby. He goes, oh, no, man, she's good. She's good. I was like, what do you mean she's good? No, man, she's good. The ambulance is on the way, right? I said, yeah, they're on the way, but what do you mean she's good? No, she's good. We're all right. So I was like, sir, that's not how this works. This is we need to be ready. And then there was nothing. Like, he didn't answer me, and I was like, hello? Sir, you there? You there? And then she gets on the phone, the patient, the soon-to-be mother. And she goes, hello. And I was like, hi, ma'am, it's 911. How are you? She's like, oh, I'm okay. And I was like, so just to be sure, you're having bulging down there? She's like, yeah, it's okay. Don't mind him. He's terrified. This is his first baby. This is my 4th baby, so we're okay though. Like, I know what's going on. Everything's cool. I can hear the sirens. They're close. I'm not too worried about it right now. And she was totally cool, totally calm. But that guy was a hot fucking mess. And I would have much rather talked to this lady or her other daughter before talking to this fucking clown asking about, is your pussy bulging? You fucking idiot. But I understand, I don't necessarily know that I would have phrased it like that if I was in his shoes, but I sure as hell just would have been, asking the questions that the call taker or dispatcher was asking me over the phone. And I will forever remember that call. Forever. And then the paramedics get there and I didn't get any credit for delivering a baby because she didn't have it in the apartment. But that was just one of them. I've had some weird calls when it comes to the children, the babies being delivered. Took another one from a guy calling saying that his neighbor had just gone into labor. They had just met. She didn't have a cell phone, and she had knocked on his door. And so when we got to that whole vaginal bulging thing, like, I didn't know that this was a case, that they didn't know each other until we got to the vaginal bulging thing. And when I asked him to ask, he said he didn't feel comfortable asking because they had not met until just now. And I said, okay, well, I can understand how that could be awkward. But then the paramedics rolled up. Luckily, we had pretty quick response times for the most part. So either the fire department or the ambulance got there first. I can't remember. But, I mean, that's just one of the stories I remember working in dispatch. And, I mean, if you're looking for a job and you want an interesting career that is both very, very, very rewarding and completely thankless all at the same time, you won't go wrong with dispatch. You have to have a very thick skin, and you have to be willing to kind of just help people regardless of what they actually say to you. And I feel like that's true for anybody in public safety. And, firefighters are the heroes, the quote unquote heroes of all things all the time. It's very rare that you'll hear about firefighters being, dragged through the mud for something that went wrong. Cops, on the other hand, cops are notoriously the bad guys because they have to go catch the criminals, and people don't like cops because, granted, cops have been fucking things up for themselves a lot lately, but, the, the names of a few fuck up the reputations for a lot, and it's a sad thing. And my former agency had been all over the news just over the last year and a half or so, and I'm glad I'm not there now because people just call up there all the time, just berating the dispatchers, many of which have only started within the last 4 years, cussing people out, cussing out the dispatchers, cussing them out, demanding justice for this, justice for that. And I get the frustration on behalf of the citizens. I really, really do. But at the same time, calling up and bitching to the dispatchers they're just trying to do their job to the best of their abilities. Really, you can only abuse somebody so much before they either quit and leave or they just decide that they're done. And instead of realizing that on their own and quitting and leaving on their own, they throw in the towel, but they stick around. And that's where it gets bad. And so, if you're looking to try and affect change on the world of public safety and policing and this, that, and the other, maybe that's a good place to start. So if you're listening to this and you're a young person and you're like, hell yeah, I'm gonna go get in and I'm gonna affect change from the inside, which I think anybody who thinks they should have an impact on how all that stuff goes down, I think they should get in there and experience it firsthand, at least in the realm of that world. Whether it be, as a dispatcher, as an actual police officer, an attorney, whatever, I think you should go see it firsthand and do what you got to do. But that's for a whole nother. This kind of took a serious turn. I was trying to keep it lighthearted with my story about how she went from vaginal bulging and baby impending to fucking, nah, we're good. The pussy's fine. The pussy is fine. Whatever. Anyway, I'm looking outside the window right now, and even though it's dark, it's just after 8 o'clock, it's snowing. And I missed the crazy-ass snowstorm here last weekend. I stayed intentionally over the weekend in Los Angeles so I wouldn't get stuck here and then miss the training that I was supposed to do at the beginning of the week while I was out there. And then I got sick, so I missed it anyway. But happy spring. Springtime is good. I like spring. Also, if you're an Aries baby, it's our time to shine. Anyway, that's going to wrap up this episode. Right now, I'm at 32 minutes, and that's pretty short, so I'm going to edit this up. It's going to be even shorter than that. And I will check you guys later next weekend, trying to make it a little bit longer, maybe share another story or two, maybe something inspiring. I have a meme that I saved of a poem about a mountain or something. I originally was going to read it, and you know what? Maybe I will find it. All right, so my cousin Joe's girlfriend posted this on her Facebook the other day, and I liked it. I don't know who wrote it. It doesn't say who wrote it on the meme. It's not really a meme. It's just a poem, and it's got some like Celtic knotwork stuff on it, and it's green, so I'm sure it's maybe something Irish, given that St. Patrick's Day just happened, but I don't know. I liked it, and I saved it. It didn't seem to have a name either, so anyway. If the mountain seems too big today, then climb a hill instead. If the morning brings you sadness, it's okay to stay in bed. If the day ahead weighs heavy and your plans feel like a curse, there's no shame in rearranging. Don't make yourself feel worse. If a shower stings like needles and a bath feels like you'll drown, if you haven't washed your hair for days, don't throw away your crown. A day is not a lifetime. A rest is not defeat. Don't think of it as a failure, just a quiet, kind retreat. It's okay to take a moment from an anxious, fractured mind. The world will not stop turning while you get realigned. The mountain will still be there when you want to try again. So climb it in your own time and love yourself till then. So with that, I leave you until next week. I love you. Thank you for calling in or listening in or whatever you want to call it. Be safe and take care of yourselves and each other.